You need truth and life. Here is the Brother Leon Show. You better recognize.
What's going on, listeners? What's going on, listeners? This is your boy, Brother Leon, and you are tuning into another episode of the Brother Leon Show. We are still in our series 91 Psalms for 91 days, and I want you guys to know that God is still on the throne. God is still in control, because God has a way of turning things around. He has a way of allowing things to happen that will cause people's motives and hearts to be revealed before all. Because that which is secret shall now be revealed. That which was done in private shall now be brought in public light. So I'm going to tell you right now, man, that you are in a place and at a crossroad of decision. Because you have to ask yourself right now, am I willing to finance oppression? And as we are in a place right now where states are taking down things from Confederate war, civil unrest, you got to understand and know what that means. That means that the oppression and the financing of oppression is now being stopped. And people are upset because they're talking about, it's part of history, it's part of our legacy, but you have to understand what that history and what that legacy meant to other people. It may mean Southern pride, but it also meant Southern terror to another group of people. It may mean that this is a part of our heritage, but you also have to understand that another person's heritage was destroyed as well. Because you got to look at the fact of what the Confederacy and what the Deep South meant to black people. And I will give you the contrast and the hypocrisy of our nation, because you will never see symbols or statues of the Jewish Holocaust in Jewish neighborhoods. They won't allow it. But yet there is no pushback. There will never be pushback on the reason why that stuff isn't allowed, because it was horrific. So my question is, why are these statues allowed? And why is this symbolism allowed to remain in communities of color? It is because of their skin and the fact that you're pretty much telling us, black people, get over it. But you never tell any other nation or any other group of people to get over it. You never tell the Jewish people to get over the Holocaust. Now, granted, there are those racist people and racist organizations that will tell you that it never happened. Just like they say about slavery, just like they're saying about police killings, that it's a hoax. And then they tell you, the black community, you need to clean up your own house. But I'm telling you right now that it is a hypocrisy. It's the hypocrisy in our nation to glamorize history. And my question is that if you want to glamorize history, why don't you honor the history or honor the contract of 40 acres and a mule? Honor that. If you're willing to protect and fight to keep these statues and symbolism in place, and you're saying that it's on the side of right, and you're saying that it's on the side of history, then why not give us that? Why not give to the descendants of slaves their 40 acres and a mule? Because they were promised land, they were promised money, and they fought in wars. But yet, none of that promise was implemented. If anything, it was a return to go back in the chains. But yet, this is the hypocrisy of our nation. And we are told that because Obama was elected, that is the payment for slavery. Get the hell out of here. Because even in Obama's election, he could barely pass anything because of the Senate and because of Republicans. So yeah, racism never went anywhere with Obama. And that's the God knows truth. There was never an end to racism with his presidency. And even if we have another black president or even a black female president, this whole thing with racism has to be dismantled, and it has to start at the church level, because I'm going to tell you right now, the first conduit to go into the earth is the church. The second conduit that goes into the earth is the White House. And I'm talking about America. Because when you look at its hypocrisy, and you see mainly that hypocrisy, you say one thing and then you do something else, is always detrimental and hurtful to black people and people of color. But you never see that thing when it comes to white people. And that's what I mean when I say they will never say that to a Jewish man. They will never do that to a Jewish community by putting symbols of the Holocaust in neighborhoods, Jewish neighborhood. You will never see that. And that's the God knows truth. So you can pretty much say right now, hey, Brother Leon, yeah, I'm definitely against all that mess. But I will tell you this, church member, do not finance your own oppression. Do not give your monies to these white leaders, to these white pastors, even to some of these black pastors who are not going to address the issue of racism. They will call this thing a faith issue all day long. And it's not an issue of faith. It's an issue of principle. Forgive my tongue tie. It is an issue of principle. And the principle is, are you going to stand for what is right? Because you can't sit up here and oppress people this long and then have symbols of that oppression and then tell them to get over it and then holler about it coming down or holler about it being vandalized. You don't know what it meant to them to see that thing every daggone day. But the crazy part about it is that those who protested a lot of times don't even live in the community. That's the God knows truth. You're not put in a school that has a name of a slave master. And the crazy part about it is that you see the hypocrisy when they say in our Declaration of Independence that all men are created equal. But yet the black man was property and considered 3/5 of a man. And yet we got to have statues of Robert E. Lee, every type of slave owner you can imagine, and quote unquote Civil War hero you can imagine in black neighborhoods all throughout the South and some neighborhoods up north. That's the God knows truth. Where I live at, they took down Caesar Rodney. Now, granted, Caesar Rodney, if he hadn't taken that ride, we probably wouldn't be called the first state. But in the same token, yeah, people say that that was the norm. That was what they did. They owned slaves. But it doesn't make it right. Thomas Jefferson authored our Constitution. But what he did wasn't right. And people try to say, oh, you know, he had a family and he treated his slaves like family. No, they were slaves. A slave didn't have rights. A slave was considered property. And if you look at some of these people who we glamorize and glorify, their whole issue was the nation. It wasn't about the slave. They used the slave as a tool. They used the slave to fight. But it wasn't about their freedom. It was about, yo, what can I do to bring our nation forward? And they use black people. And the crazy part about it is that nobody wants to talk about that. And nobody wants to repair that. And nobody wants to give restitution, restoration, and reparations for that. But yet we are told to get over it. We're told that it's too broad. But yet there has been reparations for Japanese. Japanese attacked our country. Black people didn't attack our country. and that there are reparations. And the crazy part about it is that we are supposed to be, number one, the church in America, and the church at Universal Church is supposed to be the moral compass. But yet it authorized slavery. We as the American nation are the first example. We are the main ones. If it happens in America, then it must be good. But here are things outside of America that America will not adopt. Australia paid reparations to its indigenous people. But yet America will not follow the example because we got to have talks. We got to have this. We got to have that. But I'm going to tell you people right now, don't give into the lie, and they will use bad actors, bad characters with black faces to try to demoral, deconstruct, and destroy the black community. People like Candace Owens, a majority of black pastors who are quote unquote pro-Trump, black evangelicals that won't say anything about the issue that is at hand, but yet want to tell black people what they're supposed to do. These are the ones that give you the narrative that the black community is broken. And we as black people, we have never been broken. Slavery wounded us, but it never broke us. If we were broken, Black Wall Street would have never happened. Rosewood would have never happened. But we have been able to maneuver around oppression. But my question is, how long do we got to keep maneuvering around it? There's going to come a day and a time where we are going to push through this thing. And I believe it. And my question is that, are you going to be on the side of right? Are you going to be on the side of justice? Are you going to be on the side of God? Because there are those who are telling you that this is a salvation issue. And even though God may not see color, his sons and daughters see color. And that's the God knows truth, because the gifts and the callings of God are without repentance. Meaning basically, you can be called of God, used of God, in whatever capacity that you function in the church, in fivefold ministry, and still be racist. There are those, and I gave a episode, that there are those spiritual white fathers who have black spiritual sons and daughters, and they are using those black spiritual sons and daughters against the black community because they're racist themselves, and they have given them, their black sons and daughters, ideology that tells them that this is a faith issue, and they send them to black communities, black churches, to tell people that this is a faith issue, to condemn the black community, saying that it's broken and that they need to clean up their houses. But yet, the reason why they accepted these black sons and daughters in faith, because they were looking for confirmation, admiration, and they needed love. And because of the fact that they needed love, that they needed a father figure, that they are willing to go out here and fight for the voice and for the cause of that father figure, even though that father figure is racist. So that is why you can have black pastors, whether female or male, that have white spiritual fathers that will fight against the black community and call the issues in the black community something that black people need to clean up, but yet not address the issues of the church. So I'm telling you right now, do not finance your own oppression. That is why I came against the word network, because when you're sending money to the word network, you are financing your own oppression. Because if you look at the owner and what he did to George Bloomer, and why George Bloomer left the word network, my question is, why is it that there are still black people on that network? And why is it that there are those who want to still go on there? You are financing your own oppression. So I'm going to tell you, something has to give, something has to change. Because you as a people, you can't finance your own oppression. You can't give your enemies bullets to shoot you with. And that's what they do when they tell you that this is an issue of faith. It's not an issue that we're supposed to get involved with. When they start calling Black Lives Matter a terrorist organization, but won't even mention the Ku Klux Klan. And that is what I say when I've given you Isaiah chapter 5 that says, woe, and I'm paraphrasing, woe unto them that call evil good and that call good evil. Because you got to look at it. Even though Black Lives Matter is an organization that is, quote unquote, maybe not. No, you know what? They're not a Christian organization. I ain't even going to say maybe. They're not a Christian organization. They are not a Christian church. But yet they do the work of Christ. And what do you mean, Brother Leon, when they do the work of Christ? They go to where the hurt is. Like the scenario in the story of the Good Samaritan. They go to where the hurt is. So you got to understand that organization was founded after the murder of Trayvon Martin. And it wanted people to know that Black Lives Matter, because when you look at, you go from Rodney King up until now with the interactions between black men and police, how has it gone most of the time? Seriously. And if you look at the contrast between, white officers and white men, you see that. You see the fact that the boy that killed those people in the church, they took him to Burger King. We just had a guy recently who fell asleep in a drive-thru and got shot in the back. So my question is, what is going on, America? What is going on? And that is why I'm telling you, you got to wake up, because some of these ministers do not have your back. They can talk in tongues, preach like black preachers. They love monies. But I'm going to tell you right now, they're not going to say anything because, number one, they don't want to lose their funding. And their money and their ministry brand and their agenda and the part of the big picture that they play is more important than the black community. That's the God knows truth. So they'll sit up here and put out one statement and then retract that and set up for something else. And you see them. And you see them. And I'm going to tell you right now, man, I'm telling you, everything is going to be revealed. The coronavirus revealed the hearts of pastors. And so is this whole issue of racism. It's going to reveal the heart of your pastor. And if you are following a white pastor who is not even talking about this, and his whole thing is we need to concentrate on souls, he's part of the problem. Because this issue is not either this or that. It's this and that. You can be saved, full of faith, talking in tongues, and still protest and still keep your salvation. Because that is the agenda of Christ. Christ is for the oppressed. Christ is the God of the oppressed. And to sit up here and say that this is not our issue, my question is, and like I said before, what was Martin Luther King? They ain't going to say nothing against him. Man, please. They better not say anything about Dr. King. I'm serious. No man of faith is going to say that Dr. King was out of God's will. There's no man, I don't care who they are. They're not going to say it. They're not going to talk about Malcolm X. But I'm going to tell you this. You better realize and see where your money is going. You better listen to what is being said and what's not being said. And that goes to white pastors as well as black pastors, because there's some black pastors out here, they ain't gonna mess with it either, because they got a white base. They got a white base and they don't want to offend them. And so their main goal is to protect white fragility. Because if we get to stir in this pot, they're gonna end up vacating and leaving and going someplace else. And then next thing you know, it ain't going to be enough to support my lifestyle. It's not going to be enough to support my ministry. And we may end up losing the building because of this. And I'm going to tell you, some of these people out here, it's not even about George Floyd. It's not even about Black Lives Matter. All it is protecting my brand. So I'll do whatever I need to do to protect my brand. And that goes from the White House to the corporate house to the church house. It's about the brand. It's not about the cause. It's not about what's happening in the black community. It's about my brand. And I get it. But don't sit up here and lie to us. If it's about your brand, it's about your brand. I get it. And people are more concerned about being canceled than they are community. And I get it. Totally get it. But to sit up here and say, yo, it needs to stop, and then not even want to address it, what needs to happen for it to stop, you're part of the problem. To sit up here and send a black face into a black community and put that black face all over news media to tell black people what they need to do and need to stop, you're part of the problem. Because you're pretty much telling us that we are broken, but you won't even say on why we are hollering about the pain we are experiencing. Seriously, you won't say nothing about that. You won't say nothing about why these police, from generation to generation, from training, but yet, why is it the same scenario? I was in fear for my life. But yet, these are the most decorated trained police ever. Trained to stop terrorists. But the crazy part about it is that you see the black man as a terrorist. You're seeing your own citizens as terrorists. And then you want to holler about defund the police? Y'all defunding everything else. My question is, why do we need RPG? Why does the police department need RPGs? Why does it need tanks? Seriously. So it gets me, man, when I hear it, when I see the hypocrisy, when I see the mockery. Something got to give. And I'm telling you right now, we need to wake up. Because I'm going to tell you right now, some of these pastors, they are not called to be your pastor. They called to another flock because they ain't representing the flock that they got. And that's the God knows truth. If anything, they are a hireling to the black and people of color community. They ain't a shepherd. Because a shepherd cares. A shepherd gives his life. And I'm here to tell you right now is that people, you need to wake up and see where your money is going. Do they represent your community? Are they speaking about things that are happening in your community? Because I'm going to tell you, the priest's lips are supposed to give you knowledge. It's supposed to give you knowledge itself and take you to a higher level. And if they're not willing to address the issues that affect you, if they're not willing to address the issues of the community in which they sit, in which they're supposed to minister to, then that place is not for you. I'm telling you. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's Rob Parsley, Paula White. I don't care. I don't care if it's Copeland, Jesse Duplantis. I don't care. If they can't sit up here and address this issue and call it for what it is, racism, white supremacy, white privilege, white fragility, white rage, white denial, and say that the church authorized it, and they're not willing to say the part in which the church, the white church, authorized it and projected it against black and communities of color, if they're not willing to address that and use the gifts that God has given them to turn that thing around or to even start the conversation, how can we be healed? All that is you're healing the daughters of Zion slightly. It's like pulling a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. And we have had too much of that. To sit up here and not want to even talk about it or address it says a lot. To put nationalism in over top of the Bible. To take and put the Constitution over the Bible and over communities of color, man, something is wrong. When you look at the Constitution, which says that all men are created equal, but yet it never applied to the Native American, nor to the black man, who is considered property and considered 3/5 of a man. And when you look at some of the writings of our historians, and then if you look at the symbols of some of these statues, the one thing that you got to realize is that racism, the spirit of racism, loves idolatry. It is a team sport. It loves idolatry because it uses those symbols and it enforces the fact that we have to fight to keep the system in place, to keep our liberties in place. And that's what it says. But yet, this is supposed to be a country and a nation for all people. So you got to understand, man, that there is idolatry behind this. And racism will always be a team sport, and it will use whoever. I don't care who it is. It'll use whoever it needs to use in the church. And for you to stay silent, you're a part of the problem. For you to not want to even, address other white pastors, you're a part of the problem. You'll sit up here and talk to the black community. You sit out here and put up a video, but won't talk about it in the congregation because you're afraid that your money is going to go out the door if you open up your mouth. And I get it. So congregate on that note. If you giving your tithes and offerings and they ain't willing to say anything in the large open space of congregation, then you leave. Yeah, I said it, leave. If they just want to have little cell groups and talk about this thing, cell groups is nice. But we need some preaching in the large format where everybody's there Sunday morning. We need to have this thing addressed. And we can't... I look at it like this. Yeah, we can talk about it all day long on Zoom. We can talk about it on Zoom. But you make that Zoom open to everybody in the congregation, not just to a select few. Because I'm going to tell you, there are some people, looking at the algorithms on Facebook, it's only going to go but so far. But when you open it up to everybody, when you open it up, put it on Periscope. When you open it up, put it on YouTube. When you open it up, put it on Facebook Live so everybody can see it. But I'm going to tell you what they're going to do is, they'll put something out. It'll be a little video. We'll put it up for a little bit of time and then we'll take it down because we don't want to lose too much. We got to save face for a little bit. But now you're starting to see it really wasn't about the cause. It was about trying to not lose money. And then some of them, they just be like, they don't care because black people, they too forgiving and they too forgetful. And all I got to do is make them shout and they'll forget. That's how they play us. That's how they look at us. And if they can look at you and play with you like that, you think they give a hoot about you? I'm gonna tell you, nah, man, they don't care. They'll send you a letter. Hey, we don't want you to leave. You giving $10,000. They're gonna fight to keep that money, but they don't care about your community. So you gotta open up your eyes, listeners, and understand and know that in the time that we live, you can't afford to finance your own oppression. And on that note, I'm out. I'm telling you, man, it is too much. I'm telling you, it is too much. It is too much when you see it. You know what I mean? And I've gotten discouraged and disappointed because of some of the voices of faith that I admire and how they have been silent. And then I look at voices of faith in the past and how they were attacked for even bringing up this issue. And I'm talking about Apostle Frederick K.C. Price. He came out with a whole thing on race, religion, and racism, and he was attacked. And the message that he gave is relevant for today. And yet, they attacked him. And I'm looking at the silence that is right now. And some of these men of faith, they know Frederick K.C. Price. They could have very well bought the resources and his material to start teaching people and turning things around. But I guarantee you that they didn't. And that they won't. Because their agenda is, I got to keep this money coming in. And I'm not going to touch stuff that's happening in the black and brown communities. And I look at it like this, man. Why wait until there's a storm when you could have did something when the clouds started getting dark? You could have did something way back when. It didn't take George Floyd for you to issue a statement. You could have said something back in Rodney King. But some of them, they don't care. And some of them have been around men of faith. They've been around Hagen. They've been around Lester Summerall. And the crazy part about it is that most of our heroes in the black community, we which are black people who love the word of faith, who are charismatic, most of our heroes in faith have been white. But have these white heroes, have they ever spoken up against injustice and against racism? When I look back, I don't see it. Maybe I'm wrong. Please point it out if I'm wrong. But I haven't seen it. And some of these heroes were heroes to white ministers. And because they didn't say it, they ain't going to say it, even though they know it exists. And the crazy part about it is that they kind of blackballed Fred Price when he came out with that. Because if you look at it, you hardly don't see him in certain circuits. And that's the God knows truth. Seriously. So, on that note, we gotta wake up. And we can't keep financing our own oppression. We can't keep sending monies and supporting Israel when we won't even support our own. And I love the nation of Israel, just like I love any other nation. But I believe that Africa and Africans and black Americans need to come first. And that's the God knows truth. Because we have been oppressed throughout the ages, decades. And part of it from the white church. So on that note, I want you guys to be blessed. Know my heart. Do not finance your own oppression. Peace.
Walk in the truth that makes you free every day. Follow Brother Leon on all social media outlets.